The flight was supposed to be quiet and routine. A normal passenger plane moving steadily above the clouds, filled with people who just wanted to reach their destination. Some passengers watched movies, some slept, some stared out of the small windows, lost in their own thoughts. No one was paying attention to the woman sitting near the middle of the cabin. She looked like any other traveler. Simple clothes, calm face, no signs that made her stand out. She didn't talk much. She didn't ask for help. She didn't even look nervous when the plane hit light turbulence. To everyone around her, she was invisible in the most ordinary way. The cabin crew moved up and down the aisle, offering drinks and quiet smiles. The captain's voice came on once, smooth and relaxed, saying everything was normal. The engines hummed steadily. Nothing felt wrong, but far away from the passenger plane, something was already going wrong. High above another stretch of sky, 2 F-16 fighter jets were running a routine training mission. These pilots were experienced, trained for pressure, trained for danger. They had flown through storms, near mountains, and through combat zones before. But training flights could still turn dangerous in seconds. One small warning light blinked on in one cockpit, then another. A problem that was rare but serious. The pilot tried standard checks. Systems responded slowly. Fuel readings didn't make sense. The jet was still flying, but something was failing. The second F-16 moved closer, keeping formation, the pilot's eyes scanning every detail. Radio chatter became tense but controlled. They tried to troubleshoot together. Training kicked in. Procedures were followed. Then another system failed. This was no longer a simple problem. Air traffic control was alerted. The pilot stayed calm, but inside the cockpit, time felt heavy. Every second mattered. The jets were powerful, but also unforgiving. Mistakes at this speed could cost lives. A decision had to be made quickly. The lead pilot made the call that no one wanted to make. Over the radio, his voice was steady but urgent. He requested assistance. Not just any assistance. He asked for the A-10. The A-10 was not fast or flashy like the F-16. It was built for control, for stability, for surviving bad situations. Its pilots were known for staying calm when everything else was falling apart. The call went out. Back on the passenger plane, nothing had changed. People were still unaware of the tension unfolding in the sky around them. The woman in the seat remained quiet. She had been listening to the engines, not in fear, but in focus. Her eyes were closed, but her mind was active. When the announcement came through the cabin speakers, it was short and carefully worded. The captain said there was a small delay expected due to air traffic activity nearby. Nothing to worry about. The tone was calm, designed to keep everyone relaxed. Most passengers barely reacted. But the woman opened her eyes. She listened again. The pitch of the engines, the rhythm of the aircraft, the timing, small details most people never noticed. Her breathing slowed. Her hands rested easily on her lap. She knew that sound. She had heard it before, many times. Though no one around her could imagine how or where, a flight attendant walked past her seat. The woman looked up and asked a simple question, her voice soft but clear. She asked about the announcement. Just curiosity, nothing more. The attendant smiled politely and said everything was fine. Just routine air traffic coordination. The woman nodded, but she already knew it was more than that. Her attention shifted inward. Memories surfaced, not emotional, just practical. Procedures, patterns. The way pilots spoke when things were under control, and the way they spoke when they were trying to stay that way. Outside the passenger plane, the sky was busy now. The A-10 was on its way. Coordination was happening fast. Controllers spoke in sharp, professional tones. The F-16 pilots listened carefully, adjusting course, managing systems, holding on. This situation was balancing on a thin line. Inside the cabin, Passengers remained unaware. Someone laughed quietly at a movie scene. Someone else complained softly about the delay. Life continued in small, ordinary moments. The woman remained still. She didn't draw attention. She didn't panic. She didn't announce anything. But something inside her was already preparing, not out of fear, out of responsibility. Because when the call for help went out, it didn't just reach the skies. It reached someone on that plane who had once answered calls like this before. And soon, whether anyone noticed or not, that quiet passenger would no longer be invisible. The sky outside the passenger plane looked peaceful, but the air around it was no longer calm. Invisible paths crossed above and below, filled with fast decisions and quiet tension. The woman felt it even before anything changed inside the cabin. Years of experience had taught her how silence could hide danger. The F-16 pilots were still fighting their failing systems. One jet struggled to maintain steady control. Warning tones filled the cockpit, sharp and unforgiving. The pilot adjusted controls carefully, knowing that sudden moves could make things worse. Sweat formed under his helmet, but his voice stayed firm as he spoke to air traffic control. The A-10 was closing in. Unlike the F-16, the A-10 moved with heavy confidence. It was slower, stronger, built to stay in the fight when others could not. The A-10 pilot listened closely to every word on the radio, mapping the situation in his mind. He knew his role. He wasn't there to show speed or power. He was there to stabilize chaos. Back on the passenger plane, a second announcement came through. This time, the captain's voice sounded slightly tighter, though still controlled. He mentioned a change in flight path due to military activity in nearby airspace. Again, he assured everyone there was no danger. Some passengers looked up. A few exchanged nervous glances. Most went back to what they were doing. The woman did not. She leaned back slightly and closed her eyes again. Not to rest, but to listen. More closely, the vibrations through the floor. The slight adjustment in the plane's movement. She could feel the difference. Small, but meaningful. A memory surfaced from long ago. A similar sound. A similar pause before things changed fast. She opened her eyes and looked toward the front of the cabin. The cockpit door was closed, as it always was. The crew moved with professional calm, but she noticed the subtle signs. A faster walk. A whispered exchange between attendants. One of them glanced toward the cockpit more than once. Something was escalating. In the sky, the A-10 finally reached visual range of the struggling F-16. The pilot reported what he saw. Minor smoke near a panel, unstable movement. Enough to confirm that the problem was real and serious. Instructions followed quickly. Clear, short, precise. The F-16 pilot listened and followed every step. He trusted the voice guiding him. But even with help, the situation remained fragile. Air traffic control needed options. They needed ideas. They needed calm thinking. On the passenger plane, the woman slowly unfastened her seatbelt. Not fully standing, just preparing. She waited. Timing mattered. A flight attendant noticed and gently asked her to remain seated. The woman nodded and apologized, fastening it again. She didn't argue. She didn't explain. Not yet. Minutes passed. The plane adjusted course again, slightly steeper this time. Now more passengers noticed. Whispers spread. Someone asked if everything was okay. Another joked nervously. The woman watched their faces, understanding their fear but staying grounded. Fear made people loud. Experience made people quiet. Up above, the A-10 pilot made a request that surprised everyone on the channel. He asked if there was anyone nearby, anyone with additional insight, training, or background that could help guide the F-16 through the next phase. It was an unusual request. The radio stayed silent for a moment. Air traffic control hesitated. This wasn't standard procedure. But the situation wasn't standard either. They checked logs, nearby aircraft, available resources. Time was slipping inside the passenger plane. The woman felt it. That moment when hesitation could turn into disaster. She looked at the call button above her seat. Her finger hovered for a second. She pressed it. The flight attendant arrived quickly, her smile polite but cautious. The woman spoke quietly, choosing her words carefully. She didn't claim authority. She didn't reveal details. She simply said she had experience relevant to the situation outside and asked if she could speak with the cockpit. The attendant blinked, confused. This was not a normal request. Passengers said strange things sometimes, especially during delays. But there was something in the woman's tone, calm, certain, not emotional. I understand if it sounds strange, the woman added gently, but time matters. The attendant hesitated, then nodded. She said she would relay the message. The woman waited, hands resting calmly, eyes forward in the cockpit. The message reached the captain. A passenger claiming relevant experience. No name. No details. Just confidence and urgency. The captain frowned, instinctively dismissive, but then he looked at the instruments, at the timing, at the pressure building. He made a decision. He asked for more information. Back in the cabin, the attendant returned and quietly asked the woman to follow her. A few nearby passengers noticed now. Curious looks followed as the woman stood and walked forward, steady and composed. No one knew who she was. No one knew why she was being taken toward the cockpit. But in the sky above, the F-16 was running out of safe options, and the quiet passenger was about to step into a moment she had once lived many times before, only this time from the other side of the door. The door to the cockpit did not open fully. It never did. The captain kept it secured, leaving only a narrow gap, just enough for conversation. He studied the woman standing there, calm posture, steady eyes, no panic in her face. Most passengers became nervous just standing near the front of the plane, but she looked like she belonged in that narrow, high-pressure corridor. He asked her one question first, his voice low and guarded. Not her name, not her background. Just, what makes you think you can help? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she listened to the faint radio voices slipping through the cockpit door, the clipped military tone, the tension hidden behind forced control. Finally, she spoke softly, choosing only the words that mattered. I've heard that kind of radio call before, many times. The captain's expression changed slightly. Not fully convinced, but no longer dismissive. He opened the door a little more and allowed her to step closer, though not inside. Safety procedures were still strict. Inside the cockpit, both pilots glanced back. The co-pilot watched her carefully, unsure. The radios continued crackling military frequencies, urgent instructions, and rising concern as the F-16 stability dropped again. She listened for only a few seconds before speaking calmly. As if she were already part of the workflow. He's losing lateral control, she said, referring to the struggling F-16 pilot. His right stabilizer isn't responding. The A-10 pilot is trying to guide him, but he needs someone who understands both aircraft. The captain's eyes widened. She hadn't asked anyone for details. She hadn't been told the problem. She had simply heard the tone, the breathing, the way the F-16 pilot reported his readings. This was not a guess. The co-pilot asked, cautiously, "You've worked with these aircraft?" She didn't brag. She didn't act dramatic. She simply responded, "I've worked with the people who fly them." In the sky outside, the situation worsened. The F-16 pilot's breathing was heavy but controlled. His voice trembled for the first time as he reported another system failure. The aircraft dipped, then recovered weakly. Warning alarms filled his cockpit like an unending storm. The A-10 pilot remained steady, giving instructions, but even he sounded tense now. Air traffic control came back with a desperate question, asking if there was any nearby asset, any pilot. Any specialist who could assist directly. That was the moment the captain decided. He handed the woman a spare headset. The co-pilot hesitated, but the captain nodded. And that was enough. She took the headset, placed it over her ears, and closed her eyes for a brief second before speaking into the mic. Her voice entered the military channel without introduction. Calm, clear, and neutral. F-16 lead. This is an assisting advisor on a civilian aircraft nearby. I'm here to help. Begin by stabilizing pitch at 2 degrees nose up and reduce throttle by 1 point. Don't fight the roll yet. The channel went silent. Everyone paused, unsure who she was or why she sounded so certain. Seconds passed with no reply. Then the F-16 pilot answered, his voice shocked but also relieved. Copy, adjusting pitch. Inside the cockpit of the passenger plane, the air shifted. The crew exchanged looks of disbelief. Whoever she was, the pilot trusted her instantly. She continued guiding, her tone grounded and unshakable. Good, hold that. Now check fuel pressure again. Give me numbers slowly. She was not taking over. She was stabilizing someone who was. Seconds away from losing control. The cabin behind them had no idea what was unfolding. People still whispered about the delay, complained about seat comfort, or scrolled through their phones completely unaware that their flight was now part of a life-or-death coordination effort above the clouds. The captain watched her closely, noticing the micro-reactions, the way she visualized the aircraft movements without seeing them, the way she responded before the pilot finished speaking. This wasn't luck. This wasn't someone pretending. This was someone who had lived years inside military operations, and yet she had boarded the plane quietly, like anyone else, without drawing attention. For a moment, the captain wondered why she wasn't in a cockpit. Any more why she was sitting in an ordinary seat, as if she had left that world behind. But there was no time to ask. The F-16 dipped suddenly. The pilot shouted a warning. The A-10 reacted, changing formation, trying to support visually, but the woman spoke before panic could rise. Stay with me. Don't pull up. Let it settle. Trust your left stabilizer. Breathe and correct slowly. Her instructions cut through the chaos like a steady hand on a trembling shoulder. The pilot obeyed. The jet steadied. The cockpit of the passenger plane fell silent, not from fear, but from awe. This woman, unnoticed just 20 minutes ago, was now the only reason an F-16 was still in the sky. And yet she still hadn't told them her name. Asterisk. The cockpit was quiet now, but not because the situation had improved. It was quiet because everyone, captain, co-pilot, and even the flight attendant, lingering near the door, was listening to the woman's voice. Every sentence she spoke carried the weight of someone who had not learned from books, but from years in the air where a single mistake could end everything. Outside, the sky shifted with movement. The A-10 repositioned carefully, flying just close enough to observe the failing F-16, but far enough to avoid adding pressure. The F-16 pilot steadied the jet again, but his voice revealed fatigue. He had been fighting the controls for too long. Advisor, I'm losing hydraulic pressure on the right side, he said over the radio. It's dropping fast. The woman closed her eyes, picturing every system of the aircraft. When she spoke, she didn't ask for more data. She already knew what the numbers meant. Do not attempt a hard turn, she said quietly. Let the A-10 take visual lead. You follow him with minimal input. Save what control you still have. The A-10 pilot responded instantly. Copy, taking lead position. In the cockpit of the passenger plane, the captain stepped back, giving the woman more space. He wasn't just listening anymore, he was learning. Her tone held a strange mix of confidence and gentleness, like someone who knew how to guide a damaged aircraft through its final chance without breaking the pilot inside it. A small vibration ran through the passenger plane as it changed altitude again. The cabin didn't notice much, but the woman did. Every shift in the engines, every adjustment in direction told her the crew was coordinating with military airspace. The co-pilot finally asked, very softly, "You were Air Force?" She gave a small, thoughtful pause before answering. "I used to help pilots in situations like this," she said. "Some from the ground, some from the sky." The captain glanced at her again. That wasn't just a simple answer. It hinted at years that carried stories no civilian could imagine. But again, there was no time to ask more. The F-16 pilot's breathing grew louder in the headset. Heavy, controlled, fear pushing at his edges. "Advisor, I don't think I can hold altitude much longer." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't show alarm. She simply shifted her tone, steady enough to anchor him. "Yes, you can. Listen carefully. Trust the A-10's path. He's giving you a visual corridor. Your job is only to follow his silhouette. One movement at a time. Nothing sudden." The pilot exhaled shakily. "Copy." The woman leaned slightly closer to the radio panel. Her presence felt like a weight pressing back against the panic that had been building in the air. "Good. Now reduce throttle by 0.3. Let the aircraft breathe. Don't force it." The captain found himself staring at her, not out of suspicion anymore, but out of respect. She wasn't improvising. She wasn't guessing. She was guiding that jet with the clarity of someone who had done this many times before. Back in the cabin, however, life continued normally. A child laughed 2 rows back. Someone argued softly about legroom. A group of tourists took pictures of the sky. Ordinary moments happening while, just beyond the thin metal walls, history was unfolding. One of the cabin crew approached the front again and whispered to the captain, "Passengers are asking why we keep changing altitude. Should we tell them something?" The captain shook his head lightly. "Not yet." The attendant nodded, but her eyes shifted toward the woman. She didn't understand what was happening, but she sensed the gravity of it. Then the woman's voice cut through the headset again, sharper this time. "A-10 lead, he's losing left roll authority now. Prepare him for a controlled descent. He won't maintain this altitude much longer." The A-10 pilot responded instantly. "Understood. Adjusting my flight path." The woman inhaled slowly, focusing. The next few minutes would decide everything. "F-16. Listen to me," she said gently. "Your aircraft is telling you it's tired. You're not failing. The machine is. Your job is to land it safely enough that you walk away. That is the only goal now." The pilot's voice cracked. "Not from fear, but from emotion." "Copy. I hear you." The captain whispered under his breath. "She talks like someone who has saved pilots before." But the truth was deeper. She talked like someone who had once been the voice on the radio, the voice pilots trusted in their darkest moments. And now one of those moments had found her again, even though she had tried to leave that world behind. 4 closed with a shift the cockpit could feel before anyone spoke. The F-16 began losing altitude faster than expected. The next decisions would decide whether the pilot survived. The descent began so quietly that most people on the passenger plane didn't even notice. But inside the cockpit, every person felt the shift, not through movement, but through the woman's face. Her expression changed subtly, the way someone reacts when they see a familiar danger returning. The F-16's altitude was dropping faster than expected. Not uncontrolled, not yet, but fast enough that every second mattered. "Lead at 10, she said calmly into the headset. "You need to widen your path. Give him more room. His left stabilizer won't hold tight turns anymore." "Copy." The A-10 pilot responded, adjusting position with smooth confidence. The woman turned her attention back to the struggling pilot, her voice softer now, almost like she was sitting beside him instead of miles away in a civilian cockpit. "You're doing everything right. Stay with me. Every aircraft has a moment when it gives up, and every pilot has a moment when they don't. Today, your aircraft will stop before you do. Those words steadied him more than any technical instruction. The captain and co-pilot exchanged looks. Whoever she wasn't helping because she wanted attention. She was helping because she couldn't ignore someone fighting for his life in the sky. The F-16 pilot's voice came through, rough and strained. Hydraulics almost gone, controls heavy. I don't think, she cut in gently but firmly. Don't finish that sentence. You think only about the next 10 seconds. Nothing else exists. A pause. Then a slow, steady breath came through. The channel. 10 seconds. Copy. The passenger plane adjusted altitude again. This time the cabin felt it. Drink shifted. A few passengers looked up with mild concern. Whispering rose. No one knew they were sharing airspace with a jet slowly failing above them. The woman focused again, speaking with a pace and tone that kept the pilot anchored. Okay, listen carefully. You're going to ease your throttle again. Point 1. Small movement. Let gravity help you, not fight you. The pilot followed. Altitude stabilized, barely dot, but then the unexpected happened. A burst of static hit the channel. The F-16 pilot's voice broke through, panicked for the first time. I'm losing visual on the A-10. He's drifting out of sight. I can't keep orientation. Panic was the one thing she couldn't let take over. She stepped closer to the cockpit door, her voice cutting through with calm authority. You don't need his visual. Right now, you only need mine. The cockpit crew went absolutely still. No one, not even the A-10 pilot, spoke for several seconds. How? The F-16 pilot whispered. Because I know exactly where you are, she answered softly. And I know exactly what your jet is doing. Trust the sound of my voice. Nothing else. She visualized the cockpit layout in her mind, the pilot's hands, the tension in his arms, the instruments fading one by one. She could almost feel the jet trembling under him. Level your wings as much as you can. Let the nose drop just a fraction. Good. Now hold that. Count your breaths. Each one steady. You're not falling, you're guiding. The pilot followed, and the trembling steadied again. The co-pilot stared at the woman like she was something unreal. The captain finally spoke softly, almost afraid of the answer. You've done this before, haven't you? Guided pilots who were losing everything. She didn't look away from the radio. I've been the voice that kept them alive, she said. And the voice they heard when they didn't make it. A shadow of something heavy passed through her eyes, something she carried quietly, far from this ordinary passenger seat she had taken earlier. A history no one on board knew about. Back in the military channel, the A-10 regained position. Relief flooded his voice. I have visual again. Advisor, what's his condition? Fragile, she replied, but stable enough to continue descent. Prepare for final guidance. Then she turned slightly toward the captain. You'll need to coordinate with air traffic control. They must clear a corridor for a potential emergency landing. The captain nodded without hesitation now. She wasn't a passenger anymore. She was the most capable person in the sky. The final minutes of descent were approaching. And if the F-16 pilot was going to survive, everything she knew, everything she had once walked away from, would be needed again. Part 5 ended with a quiet realization inside the cockpit. This woman wasn't stepping back into her past. Her past had come looking for her. Asterisk. The sky was beginning to change color as the sun shifted, throwing long streaks of gold across the clouds. Inside the passenger plane's cockpit, that soft light touched the woman's face, but it didn't soften the intensity in her eyes. She was listening to every breath, every pause, every tremor in the F-16 pilot's voice. The co-pilot watched her as if she were reading a map no one else could see. Advisor, the A-10 pilot called. We're approaching the lowest safe altitude. He'll need step-by-step instructions. His stabilizers won't hold much longer. She nodded, even though they couldn't see her. Her hand rested lightly on the back of the captain's chair, not from stress, but from focus. 16, she said, her tone steady but almost warm. I know this part feels impossible. I know your jet is fighting you, but I'm not going anywhere. You copy? A shaky breath came through the headset. Copy, I hear you. Good, she replied. Then we'll finish this together. The pilot held on to her words like they were a lifeline. The cabin behind them had no idea that the flight they were sitting on, ordinary, quiet, forgettable, was now assisting in one of the most delicate rescue efforts happening that day in the sky. For the passengers, the biggest inconvenience was a delay. For the F-16 pilot, these next minutes were the difference between life and death. The captain coordinated with air traffic control, as she instructed. Calls were made. Corridors were cleared. Other aircraft were rerouted. A bubble of protected airspace began forming around the military jets. Advisor, the captain whispered to her, the tower wants to know how much experience you actually have, what they should log you as. She didn't look at him. Tell them, she said quietly, that I've guided damaged aircraft before. They'll understand. He sent the message. He didn't ask more. He didn't need to. Back on the military channel, alarms blared again. The F-16 dropped sharply, too sharply. His voice cracked. I'm losing her. I'm losing the aircraft controls are dead. Even the A-10 pilot sounded tense. Lead, stay with me. Stay with me. But the woman didn't react with fear or urgency. Her voice grew even calmer. Listen to me, she said. Your jet is heavier on the right side now. Stop fighting that. Let it lean. Guide the lean. Don't correct, just guide. There was silence. Then the pilot's voice, trembling but controlled. It's leveling. It's actually leveling. Exactly, she said. You and the aircraft are not enemies. You're partners now. Treat it like it's hurt, not broken. The A-10 pilot exhaled loudly into the channel. Advisor, whatever you're doing, it's working. She didn't answer. She was focused on what was coming next, the transition from descent to approach, the most difficult part. Okay, she said softly, F-16, we're preparing you for final alignment. I want you to imagine the runway ahead, even though you can't see it yet. Picture it, the shape, the slope, the landing lights. Hold that image. The pilot inhaled sharply. I have it. Good, now match your aircraft to that picture, one breath at a time. The cockpit of the passenger plane was utterly still. The captain and co-pilot felt as if they were witnessing something sacred, something beyond training or protocol. This wasn't just guidance, it was connection. Then something remarkable happened. The woman removed one hand from the captain's chair and reached toward the radio panel, not touching anything, just hovering her fingers over the air, as if mapping out movements the pilot needed to feel. Her voice softened, almost like she was speaking to someone she once knew. You're not alone up there. You never were. Not today. A long, trembling breath came from the F-16 pilot. For the first time, he sounded steady, truly steady. I'm ready, he said. The A-10 pilot confirmed. Advisor, we're aligned with the emergency corridor. Bring him in. She opened her eyes slowly, as if returning from somewhere deep inside herself. 16, she said. We begin final guidance now. You stay with me, every second, every breath. The descent entered its final phase. And in the cockpit of a civilian plane full of unaware passengers, a woman who had lived a life she never spoke about was now guiding a man she had never met toward a runway neither of them could see yet. Part 6 ended not with fear, but with something powerful growing in the air. Trust. For the first time, the pilot believed he might survive. The final descent began with a silence so complete that even the hum of the passenger plane's engines felt distant. The woman stood near the cockpit door with the headset pressed gently to her ear, her eyes half-focused, as if she could see the failing F-16 through the clouds themselves. The captain and co-pilot stayed absolutely still. They knew they were witnessing something extraordinary, something few would ever understand. "F-16," she said softly, "you're entering the landing corridor. From here on, every movement must be slow and honest. No forcing, no fear." A deep breath came through the radio. "Copy. Staying with you." The A-10 pilot circled like a guardian, keeping visual contact, staying just close enough to guide. The strain in his voice had faded. He trusted her now more than he trusted his instruments. "Advisor, he's aligned. Altitude steady for now." She nodded once, the tiniest motion. "Good. Maintain spacing." Let him feel the air under the wings. Back on the passenger plane, the cabin began feeling mild turbulence. A few passengers gripped armrests. Someone called for a flight attendant. But the attendants had already been instructed. The front of the aircraft was off limits. Everyone stayed calm, unaware that a military emergency was unfolding meters above and around them. Inside the cockpit, the woman shifted her stance. Her voice lowered further, becoming the kind of voice that reached into a person's deepest instincts and held them steady. "F-16, you're going to feel the controls get heavier. That's normal. It's the aircraft preparing to settle. Don't fight it." The pilot exhaled shakily. I can feel it. "Right stabilizer's almost gone. That's fine. You only need enough to guide, not to perfect." Landing a damaged jet is not about control, it's about patience. The A-10 pilot chimed in. "Advisor, runway in sight." "He's on path." She closed her eyes for a moment, visualizing every angle, every shift of wind, every vibration the pilot was feeling. "Good. F-16, lower throttle by 0.2. Let the jet glide. Keep your nose aligned with the lights. You're doing well." The convent cockpit of the passenger plane felt like a chamber holding its breath. Then the F-16 pilot spoke, voice breaking for the first time, not out of fear, but relief. "I see the runway. I actually see it." She allowed herself a small smile, gentle and proud. "Then land it. Slowly. Let the wheels meet the earth. Don't rush." Silence. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Then a burst of sound came through the headset. The thump of landing gear touching down, the roar of wheels scraping asphalt, the heavy shake of a damaged fighter completing the hardest part of its journey, followed by the pilot's voice, cracking completely. "I'm down. I'm actually down, advisor. I'm safe." The A-10 pilot whooped in triumph. "He's landed. Advisor, you just saved him." That was unbelievable. The woman didn't celebrate. She simply breathed out softly, a quiet release of a weight she had carried since the call began. "Good work, both of you," she said. "Now finish shutdown procedures. The rest is routine." Her calmness in that moment spoke more loudly than any celebration could. When the captain finally removed his headset and turned to her, he looked like a man who had witnessed something almost unreal. "You saved a pilot's life today," he said quietly. She shook her head. "He saved his own life. I only reminded him how." The co-pilot stepped forward, still stunned. Who are you really?" For a moment, she didn't answer. She looked out the cockpit window, watching the distant speck of the F-16 being met by emergency crews on the ground. There was a softness in her expression, something between memory and closure. "I used to guide pilots," she finally said. "Long ago. I don't anymore. Today was just one last time." She handed the headset back to the captain with a steady hand. "No name. No title. No explanation." Then she turned and walked back toward the cabin, just as quietly as she had come, blending again into the sea of ordinary passengers who would never know what had happened above the clouds. As she returned to her seat, a woman nearby smiled politely at her, unaware A child in the next row laughed at a cartoon. Life continued as normal, only she carried the truth. A life had been saved because she couldn't ignore the call for help, not when she had once been the voice pilots trusted. When the sky turned against them, and so the story ended exactly as it began. No one noticed her on the plane, but she noticed everything.